Opposed? Motion carried. At this time, we would entertain comments from visitors. Comments from visitors must be informational in nature, not to exceed 5 minutes per issue. The board will not engage in a discussion or a debate. We'll take the information and find answers if that's appropriate. As part of the board protocol, it is unacceptable for any speaker to slander or engage in character assassination at a public board meeting. Oh, anybody like to speak?
I'm Jennifer Cummings, Aiken County resident, district resident, and I know you just said you can't engage in discussion. I'm trying to figure out how to get answers, and I sent an email twice to the board asking, suggesting the idea of maybe having a town hall, some sort of session where members of the community and parents could ask members of the board questions and get answers. And Mr. Jansen responded, Mr. Ryan responded. You left me a voicemail, Mr. Chair. And I didn't call you back, and mostly it's because I want to have a record of.
I don't do emails, so.
I understand that. I guess that's your business, but I don't know how you can conduct school board business if you won't respond to emails, but.
So, I don't like to do a discussion here, but I did respond to you. So don't say I didn't respond.
On the second time I sent it out, yes.
Yep.
And so I haven't heard from Mr. Bailey or Mr. Hogue or Mr. Stifter or Ms. Hauser or Ms. Hills. And I believe that I explained in the email that I wasn't making that request or suggestion on my own behalf. It's on behalf of a lot of parents. I was the one who decided to send the email, but for whatever reason, parents in this district contact me and tell me things that they're concerned about, that they're trying to get answers from school board members and they can't get answers. And also for the record, I forgot to say, Mr. Hogue, I did send it to your Flat Rock email. I don't know what else to do. I don't know how to get answers to questions if people won't respond to emails. I also wanted to say again, I'm a little concerned that, and maybe it's in the policies I didn't have a chance to review, but I'm a little concerned that the minutes from the meetings now don't even record that there were members of the community there that said anything. It's like we're not even here, because it's not in the minutes anymore. So I guess I just wanted to express that concern. I really had hoped that after I sent the email the second time that I would see the possibility of having a town hall on the agenda for the board to discuss in front of the public, but I don't see it on the agenda. So I guess I would really appreciate, as a matter of courtesy to the community, that someone on this board tell me if there's been a discussion about it, tell me if you're thinking about doing that, or if you're not, what is the plan to respond to questions and concerns of the public? Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else want to speak? Okay, if not, no presentations. Old business. Approved following policies, second reading, policy 204, policy 205, 206, 207, and 208. About school board minutes, open meetings, closed meetings, public participation in school board meetings, complaint about persons at school board meetings, and data privacy considerations, public hearings, and development, adoption, and implementation of policies. Is there a motion to approve any of them policies?
I'll make a motion.
All of them? All policies?
Yep.
Okay,
I'll second.
no second. Is there any discussion?
I have a question about 206, is that adopted from MDE?
Be Minnesota School Boards,
I mean, it's my fault.
Yep,
MSBA.
their updates, recommendations.
So that's the blanket one that came to every school district?
Yeah, that's, yes. I don't have it, oh, there it is. Yeah, I'm not sure on that one if.
206.
206?
206. I think the only change, they pulled some more from another statute, I think they added that. Just that word, the statute number. So, I don't believe the policy itself changed at all. I'm trying to pull up here.
Nothing changed, you say,
No.
from
I don't
previously
believe so.
what it was?
Right.
So you're saying that
The changes are in your back here, well, I suppose you don't, do you want a copy of it here?
yeah, well, no, I'm just asking, like, so when was the last it was updated? Prior to now?
Looks like 2012 possibly.
No, I'm just saying that, so nothing's changed since 2012?
Right,
No language has changed since 2012?
Doesn't look like it, no.
Okay.
the only thing that's changed here is in the back, they've taken out some of the procedures and the statutes look like some were added.
In the
Do you
legal
want a copy of that?
references and the cross references.
Jeremy, do you want a copy?
No, no, no.
I believe it was 2017 was last updated. They've kind of changed the format and how they're presenting with amendments to the game.
Because there was some new stuff that came out, was it 6 months ago, was it? About 206 from MSBA? And that's the blanket policy, that's the blanket language I'm talking about.
Great.
I mean, not, I guess, statewide, but nationally, that,
There's a statute here about the right to privacy of complaints is provided by child abuse reporting, that was in here. That was changed, and then it was just the back page, a couple statutes.
You want to hear about it?
Yep, that's the one I just said.
Okay.
Yeah.
If they change it, they send us, they're changing it anyway.
That's
right?
what, anything that's underlined here is what they changed or added.
I guess the concern I have with it is that part of that stuff that came out 6 months ago was, to potentially silence people that were wanting to, speak their mind in an orderly fashion at a school board meeting. And the concern I have is if they just change some statutes and put it on the back and, without showing us what the statutes potentially were, then I have concern with it if we're gonna, I'm not saying we are, but, I mean, if that's a blanket for the state of Minnesota or nationally, that parents can't,
One of the,
voice an opinion or concern with our system, or issues within our system, then I do have concern with that.
one of the changes, or one of the challenges that came out, whether it was 6 months ago or in the last year, whatever it was people signing in having to provide an address. And that actually came out of the policy. If person not sign in, but person should provide their name. It used to be that the policy said name and address, and the name of the people representing. Well, now they don't no longer have to provide the address. I know that was a controversial. At one point, boards were maybe not allowing people to speak if they're trying to block people from speaking if they weren't part of the district. So if you look on, this would be page 3, under Roman numeral 6, letter A, number 1, addresses is crossed out there. I don't know, Jeremy, if you've got color, if you're able to see that or not.
That was the only change that I was aware of too,
Page 3.
so Mr. Jansen, if there's other changes, I'm not aware of those. The address one was the only one that I am aware of, and again, I don't think it really applied to us because we haven't asked people to do
No, the
that.
back page, too, Jeremy.
I would be fine with pulling it if we wanna do some more research on it, but I think that that's,
Yeah, no, I'm okay with it, I just think that this was a hot topic 6 months ago about, specifically about that policy and participation in school boards, and if there was more changed, other than that, then I would like it pulled, if that's, if we're not adopting what was, potentially, suggested we do, or as a blanket across the state do, then I'm okay with moving forward.
I believe that's the only change, other than referencing some other statutes that pertain to it. And those are listed on the last page.
I mean, because there was a time that it was suggested that, police officers be in attendance and, which we did have one, right? And so I just don't, I want to make sure that the public has, obviously we can't engage in a situation like this county came up here, but we should be allowed to.
I don't think it changes any of that.
Okay, that's all I needed.
Okay. Any more discussion? We'll vote, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. New business. Consent agenda items. I guess before we start with that, I would like to, Paul's here, I'd like to thank him for your years of service here, congratulate you. Hope you, play golf, I guess.
It's been a fast 7 years.
Yeah.
Very, very fast.
So,
Yeah, thank you very much.
we haven't acted on it yet, but maybe we'll pass.
Okay.
I take that part out of it.
It says resignation on here, but it's a retirement. Good.
yeah, congratulations on that, Mr. Crowe.
You bet.
It's been, I was, I think, a part of the original, many of us were a part of the interview process, and we've appreciated all of your contributions to the school district, and you will be missed.
Fully, it's been 37 years, and I've seen change from every type of educational process for the last 37 years, and it's been quite a ride. And I think with the change in COVID and some of the things when that hit, that put a lot of strain on a lot of people over a period of time.
That's for sure.
We're feeling it across the state. But I'd like to thank the board. It's been a good ride. It's been kind of nice to come home to hometown and finish my career here.
You bet. Thank you.
Thank you very
What
much.
year did you graduate?
1980.
Did I have you in class?
You probably don't remember this, but I was wrestling Keith Bartell in a wrestle-off one afternoon, and we went into a triple overtime. He beat me by 1 point, and I got up and walked off the mat and walked over to you. I will never forget it, and I said, I'll never wrestle again, and I never did.
Did I have you in class though?
Yeah, you did.
I don't remember you.
Oh, that's all right.
I remember your brother.
I was quiet.
I remember your brother. Yeah, you were. Okay. Just wondered.
He had hair back then.
Yeah, I did. I had lots of hair back then.
I do want to jump in a little bit too, working with Paul the last couple of years, it was good to come in. Not only the experience he had a few years prior to me coming back in the district, but just all his years across the board, it was good working with him, it's good working with him, so thank you, Paul, for
You're a good man.
that as well.
Thank you.
Okay, is there anything else on the consent agenda anybody would like to remove or have clarified? It goes through 8A11. The music.
I'll move to approve.
Okay, we have a motion approved, is there a second?
I'll second it. Who's that?
Don. Any more discussion? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, discussion items. We have, first, discuss and approve the Education Minnesota Aiken Teachers Contract for 2021 through 2023. Dan?
Yep, yeah, so we met with mediation and spent the day working with the teachers and the mediator. We came to the end deal, the package is 5.67%, that includes the steps and lanes. Steps and lanes, part of that would have automatic, the automatic, I don't know, that's already built into the contract, that's already been negotiated and approved in the past, comes out to being $521,478. The new monies added on, with the negotiation process is $325,876, so.
And that's over 2 years.
Over 2 years, yes, that's the 2 years of the contract, so. So 2-year deal, the 2-year percentage is 5.67, was 0% increase year 1 and 3.58 year 2. 3.53 year 2, excuse me, 3.53.
They've already voted on the accepted, right? They've accepted it?
Yep.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve that?
I'll move to approve that.
Cindy,
I'll second it.
Don second. Any discussion?
I don't like the process that, go ahead, who's going, somebody speaking?
Who do you
What?
want?
Go ahead, Cindy.
I just wanted to thank the people on the school board who were a part of that negotiation committee. I know that it's not an easy process to go through with any of the groups, and I know that everyone works very hard in our district, but I also know that we need to get the biggest bang for every dollar that we spend. And so I just wanted to say that I appreciate the people on the board who did the negotiating, as well as the committee members from the union that were negotiating as well.
Thank you. Jeremy?
Yeah, the process as a whole, I was displeased with. Mediator, you know, the directions.
Just for, you were on the.
Yeah, I was there. Yeah. The directions given in the morning, the 7.5 hours we spent mediating back and forth, to have an open-ended agreement, that ended up getting changed after the fact, was very displeasing to me, and the whole process around it left a bad taste in my mouth, and I was part of the last one, part of this one, and I will not be part of the next one. So that's my 2 cents as part of one of the school board members that was part of that negotiation.
Okay. Anybody else?
When you say changed after the fact, my understanding of what occurred is that there, at the end of the day, that there was a specific dollar amount that was appropriated, and then that there was some changes that came forward after that, but that the dollar amount remained the same. Is that correct?
That's not what we agreed to, Cindy.
Oh, okay.
We left with a specific, this is what it was going to be. And it may have been, which it was, the same dollar amount. But that's not the principle behind it, of how it went down was not. If that's what we were gonna do in the beginning, nobody would have had to mediate. We could have just continued to do it on napkins and, you know, and pencil to get to end up where we were anyway, so. I don't like the way it went down. I don't like who negotiated after the fact, and so that's, it may have been the same dollar amount, but if that was the case, then they could have been okay with our offer to begin with.
Okay. Anybody else?
And is there a charge to have the mediators, or is that provided by the state?
Cost. Right. Is that what you asked?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
thought
we
that
pay.
the mediation service.
Both groups pay.
We split it in.
I see, okay, I didn't
So,
know.
so I'm gonna throw my 2 cents in here. I know when Dan called me, I sort of complained that why wasn't the numbers that the mediator came up with in the two groups at that point, why they weren't here too. I realize it's the same dollar amount, but there again, everybody agreed to those numbers that day. And, you know, if them numbers were in the back of the group's mind, they should have been brought forth that day with the mediator. Even though it's the same dollar amount, it's just, why waste the time going through that? Yeah. I wasn't on the team. I've been on the team in the past, and it's just not fun sitting there for the whole day, going back and forth. So I can relate with Jeremy. Dan, you can contest to what I said, I believe. You will. Yeah, I just, you know, I understand state money, but it's just,
And my understand, just one more question, my understanding is that by switching that dollar, the percentage should be higher in the second year. That's actually, I don't know if I wanna go as far as to say a savings, but the spend is not coming until later, is that correct?
Yeah, well, initially it was
It wouldn't have been the first year anyway.
Initially, the initial agreement was 1.5 year one with no retro pay. And that would be approved, that would go into effect June 30th, so there would be no retro pay, and then 2% the second year, which would go into effect July 1. The negotiators came back and said, well, let's just go put it all in the second year, we'll go 0% in year one, just, so we're not showing two salary schedules. It just, in my opinion, kind of cleaned things up for both sides. Same exact dollar amount, we run it, it's not costing us any more at any level, any step. I understand that, the idea that, you know, we have the agreement of the 1 and 1.5 and 2, but I did contact and had the board members. I knew there was some disagreement among the board, but I felt like we had enough, you know, and Dennis did, and Jeremy both did express their concern, but kind of came to the conclusion that the staff, the teachers thought it would help them explain the contract and the deal better, that we would make the change. So again, it didn't cost any more dollars or cents either way, however we did it. It just kept us from having to show two salary schedules for this current school year, and puts it all in the second year, which is where we've ended up anyway. So nothing else in the contract changed. I think the mediation process, you'd say we won. Mediation's an interesting process. I think the mediator did get both sides talking and moving, so I think that part of it was helpful. It was a long day, long 7.5 hours of hurry up, crunch numbers, try to figure something out, and then wait to hear back from the other side. That's how mediation goes. So again, it doesn't cost any more with what we did, what we had originally proposed.
The part from the mediator that is frustrating, and the three of us that are there, and anybody that was part of that, we were lectured at the beginning about TAs, were we not?
Yes, we were.
And so, you know, that we will reach a TA at the end of the day, and both sides should take that back to their members and push for that to be accepted. We agreed to do that, and if the numbers were the same that we suggested, then it doesn't matter to me that the dollars are the same. It's the principle that we agreed as a TA, and they take it back and don't agree to the same thing that we were lectured about for the first 4 hours of mediation.
Was it a TA or was it when we left? I thought it wasn't a TA. We just kind of naturally agreed it was nothing tentative agreement.
I don't know if it was officially called a tentative agreement, but I think the understanding was that it was a tentative agreement.
Right, but to me, it wasn't a TA, they were just, because we just called it off, and that was, we kind of agreed on that percentage, not that like it is, but it was the same.
okay, any other discussion? We can do a roll call vote. Cindy,
Yes.
Don,
Yes.
Noel,
Yes.
Jeremy,
Yes.
Kevin,
Yes,
and I'll vote yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Approve or discuss the resolution HR 5984 and S 3213 about the cross subsidy.
Yeah, and that's, oh, you're done. Can I jump in? That's a resolution that districts across the state have been asked to pass. Cross subsidy expenses, that has to do with special education expenses that districts face that are above and beyond the amount of dollars that the state and federal government set aside specifically for special education. Right now, with the budget surplus, there's been a push amongst educators and school districts to try and see if the legislature and the legislators will address the cross subsidy issue. Right now, we spend, and I don't want anybody to take this like I'm speaking out against special education by any means, that we provide some wonderful services across the board for any and every challenge or disability a student may have. But right now, it costs Aiken School District's just over $832,000 a year, above and beyond what the state and the federal governments set aside or reimburse us for on special education expenses. So I don't know if anything will come of this, if the state will look at it and say, hey, we'll pick up a larger percentage. Back in 1974, when IDEA, the law went into effect that provided for special education services, the intent, I believe, was the federal government would pay that. Well, then when the federal government got the bill, they realized they couldn't pay it. And ever since 1974, there's been the percentage that they paid seems to have gotten less as expenses have gone up. This is a challenge for districts across the state. We're no different than any others. Districts our size are in that $800,000 to $1 million cross subsidy expense that they're taking with that. So then that money comes out of our general fund, which is $830,000 less money we have to spend elsewhere. So all I'm asking is that the board approve this, and I'll send it on to Superintendent Association. And I think the School Board Association also wanted a copy. They're keeping track of creating a file that they're gonna use to move forward to try and get some help for all districts in the state on the cross subsidy funding for special ed. In a
Any
nutshell.
questions?
I just have yes, I do have a question. This is what we consider an unfunded mandate, correct?
Yes, or underfunded mandate. yes.
Underfunded?
Yep.
I got one, if we don't send it to them, they'll never hear anything, at least they're hearing about it, that's
Yeah.
what I look at.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they're just gonna let it go by the window.
When I had lobby day, I was down at the Capitol, this was a topic we shared with the different legislators we met with, and in the House, maybe a little more movement than I felt like we did in the Senate, but, if they are looking at spending some funding in education, this is one area they could impact every student in the state, in one area, right? It wouldn't be, because that comes back in the general fund, and it would just free up some, or make some money available there that districts could have to spend on any and all students.
I saw where it's gonna be brought up at the state legislature, so two increases funding for special ed.
Yeah, it might be more symbolic than anything that I'm asking for.
Who knows what they're gonna do.
Okay, motion?
So moved.
Motion or second?
Yep.
Kevin? Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. 8.3, open meeting law.
I would jump in and then, open meeting law, there's been some concern with emails and contacts that have gone to all board members. I've been doing some work with following up with MSBA, trying to make sure we're staying within the law. And if the entire board gets an email or correspondence, that's one thing, but when we start running into potential open meeting law violations, if somebody responds back to the whole group, now it could be interpreted as discussion or policy being discussed or decisions being made through the emails that are not a part of the open meeting, so, that's, I was asked to, I put that on there, it was in the policy, we talked about earlier, one of the policies that we approved, and
Can I get this summary?
yeah, we-
Can I get that?
Yep, go ahead.
Thank you. I was the person who asked that this be added to the agenda. And so I just want to give just kind of a brief background. It's called the Minnesota Open Meeting Law. And that law requires that meetings of governmental bodies, including us as a school board, are generally open to the public. The open meeting law was originally enacted in 1957 and then was codified under Minnesota statutes, chapter 13D. The Minnesota Supreme Court has articulated three purposes of the open meeting law. One is to prohibit actions being taken at a secret meeting where it's impossible for the interested public to become fully informed about a public board's decision or to detect improper influences. Number two, to assure the public's right to be informed. And three, to afford the public an opportunity to present its views to the public body. Again, as a school board, elected school board, we are subject to the Minnesota open meeting laws. When there's a violation of the law, then the law provides for penalties and potentially removal from office. And so those penalties would come to us as individuals. And again, one of those consequences could be removal from office. And so I just wanted to bring this up because I know that it's difficult sometimes when people want to have conversations with the board. It's easy to use email. That's a mode of communication that's becoming very commonplace in our society. And so when a constituent or interested party or a stakeholder emails the entire school board and then asks for a response or some dialogue, I think it puts me in an uncomfortable situation, and I'm only speaking for myself. And so an example is the speaker that commented earlier tonight. I think it's easier sometimes to pick up that phone and to have that phone conversation. I try to do that when I can. What I'm concerned about is if it's coming in to us as a group, if more than 3 people respond back to that chain, or if those emails are forwarded and then that dialogue gets to where there's more than 3 board members that are talking about it, we're potentially in violation of that open meeting law. And I take this position very seriously. I do not personally want to be sanctioned. I don't want to be charged with something, and I certainly don't want to be removed from office. I want to follow all of the rules. And so I just wanted to raise this awareness that when those messages are coming in, it's not that I don't want to talk about it, it's that I'm concerned about that. And so I just wanted everybody to be aware of that, because I think it puts us in an uncomfortable situation at times when there's topics being discussed via emails, when there's forwards of emails that are happening, when different people are chiming in. We're all in jeopardy of violating that open meeting law.
That references the stuff on the agenda, is that correct, Cindy?
It would be anything that would be school business, so things that are on the agenda or could be on the agenda. And so, for instance, whether or not we would have a meeting with the public, if that's something that we want to discuss, the proper forum would then be to contact the superintendent, request that be put on the agenda. I believe that our policy is that the board chair sets that agenda, so it would need to be under his review. And then that's a town hall. I would love to talk about a town hall and have that be a topic that's on the agenda. I don't want to talk about that in an email amongst us. I would prefer that protocol be followed, that it be requested of the superintendent to be put on the agenda, and then the board chair can decide when and where that's appropriate to add that to the agenda. So it's not that I'm not interested in it, I just want to follow the rules.
No.
That's the reason I don't answer those emails, is the reason that Cindy just gave, because I've got several, I've got them in my board computer. I've kept them, but I'm not going to respond to them simply because I don't want to violate anything to where, you know, there's open meeting laws and stuff like this, so that's the reason I'm doing
You know, just one point I'd like to make, I guess, is, I've been on the school board for 8 years, 4 superintendents. And 3 of the 4, were very good about including Dan. Very good about, one was an interim, so didn't, do as much, communication that way, but every Friday we get a board update that has, you know, information to us, changes in the school, this and that, that I guess if we're concerned about that, then we should probably go away with that as well. Would be my suggestion, because it gives us many updates that, again, if we're talking about fine line, that's a fine line then.
Can I respond?
Yeah, sure.
Yep, you can.
I think that we posed that question to the attorney a couple of years ago, right? And I think that Dan has been very clear when he has sent out things, or when Mary Ollie has sent out like board agenda minutes, things like that, that the intent is to say this is for information only, it's not for discussion coming back. And so I would distinguish that from an email from a constituent who is saying, I want you as a board member to respond back. I've had constituents who say, I'm a really busy person. It's much easier if I send the email to the 7 board members and if all 7 of you would just respond back, because I just want to be able to get this resolved. And my response has been, I'm happy to talk about that with you individually. I don't want my emails to be forwarded. I don't want there to be conversation, you know, happening that then could stream it all back, right? And so I want to be cognizant of being responsive, but I don't want to break the law. And I, again, would distinguish something that's coming out for an informational purpose where we have been told this is for information, not for discussion. And I think Mr. Stifter and Ms. Ollie have been very clear at saying, when I'm sending out this information for the entire school board, if you want to have conversation, call me individually. Please do not respond as a group. And I think as a board, since we received that legal opinion a couple of years ago, I think that we've done a very good job at that. It's just, how do you handle the emails that are coming in from constituents who are saying, I want everybody to be responding and included in this conversation.
Okay, I agree with that, you know, as far as informational, that's information, and that, you know.
Mr. Chair. So if I email each person individually, does that get around the problem? And also, I know you can't answer me and you won't answer me, that's my whole point, is nobody will answer me.
Call me, I'll talk to you.
Okay, but when I did send that or that email, what would have stopped somebody from saying, please contact the superintendent and the chair and ask that this be put on the agenda? That wouldn't have been hard to do. And then I would have, I wouldn't have known, and I wasted time, sorry.
Like I said, if you'd have called me, I could have told you.
You don't have
So
to
it's
hit
my
the,
fault.
you don't have to hit the button that says reply all. You can hit a button that says reply.
We can, but I have also had recently where then my reply, where I specifically said in that reply, please don't forward this on. I want to have a one-on-one response with you. I'm concerned about the open meeting law, and that message was forwarded on to other board members who then were replying. And so I just simply am not gonna use that mode because I can't control what's gonna happen once I hit reply.
So how about if we get everybody's phone numbers?
They're published on
They're
the board
Published on the
website.
website.
I just, you keep saying what you can't do, and I wanna know what you will do.
Call me.
Yes, I can call you, but that, and you did call me, thank you, after I sent it the second time, but no one else has.
Okay. Board, any more discussion? Okay. There needs no action on that, so. Discuss and approve adding a .5 ECFE teacher, Dan?
Yep. I've been working with Laura, actually Laura Parkin's been working on this. She's got some grants through Northland Foundation, it's a early childhood funding that we could use, to add
Wait, Dan, what are you talking about?
oh, it's,
Excuse me, Bob, B4, or 8-4.
B4, discuss and approve
We don't
adding
have
a-
that.
We don't
We
have
don't
that.
have it.
It's
Oh,
fine.
you know why, because that was printed,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that's
Okay,
good.
Is it 884?
Yeah.
so discuss and approve adding a .5 ECFE teacher is what we're on now. Here, you wanna pass it down so Nolan, you already have it, I got it on my computer.
He had sent me, when you sent me an email. About that, you sent that update? Was that
Yeah, I
update?
sent it to Mary Thursday night, I think.
Well, I read it, somebody must, he must
I
have.
put it was in my board update.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I read it.
yeah. So it was in my board update. So, so she has secured some grant funding, and the idea is that it kind of came from the meals we were delivering, I think the original discussion. Last summer, we had set up with the free meals we're doing in the summer to get out to the townhomes. I forget the name, out behind, out the tire barn out there. I forget the- North Point Townhomes. That was one area, but we had a lot of, we were able to get meals to them just because somebody out there reached out. I think it was a county worker, said, hey, we have this population out here, and not that we didn't know about some of the kids, but we realized some of the kids could be getting services elsewhere. So Laura's been working on, coming up with some grant funding, and Northland Foundation has stepped up. And our goal is to reach more of the younger kids. The position would be kind of a, lack of a better term, kind of a child find for kids that aren't a part of our programs that maybe could benefit at the youngest age. And then this person would also, work with our ECFE, but also do some outreach things. Maybe at the townhomes, there would be one day a month, there would be one day a month where they go out there and meet with kids just in that area. We talked about expanding out to Palisade and having a day out in Palisade as well for families that can't get their kids into Rippleside for a part of the programming. And then this person would also work with some of our night classes as well. It'd be, right now, we're looking at about a half-time position, and it would be grant funded, it wouldn't cost the district. We look at it from year to year with grant funding, and based on the results we get, we'll kind of determine if we continue with the grant funds. And I'd like to be able to get permission from the board to post the position, just to see, we can have the position, but we don't have anybody interested in doing it. It doesn't do us any good, so. Again, this is a position that's, right now, looking like about a half-time teaching position. We'd just like to post and see what's there, and if there's somebody available that we can put into that, or able to do that.
So it would be under the teacher's
Well, it depends who we would,
salary or under the?
it'd be about a half-time teacher's salary is what we have in grants, but it depends on who's available. That's
Is there funding for that?
There's been the Northland Foundation and some ECFE,
Laura,
Laura Parkin's working.
yeah, that's the one that.
Yeah, it depends, right now, if the position has to be a licensed teacher, it depends on how it breaks out, what we do with it. Would be about a half-time teacher salary. If it doesn't have to be, then we could hire somebody maybe more time, because they wouldn't be on that contract.
How long is the grant for?
The grant,
Annually. It's every year, so it'd be re-upped every year.
yeah.
Maybe we don't.
Correct.
We show that we're, yeah, it depends on the results, what we can show, if it's helping or working or not. I don't have the stats in front of me, but oftentimes kids that aren't involved with some of the early learning things, ECFE things, usually have the more, I shouldn't say you, but oftentimes will have the more difficult transition starting in September, with that whole break and stepping away, and not to mention, other academic concerns. Some kids do just fine with it, but we thought this would be a way to reach reach out and see, and maybe we find out in a year that, there's not, there's not as big a need, or there's not a need for it, and that changes, but.
Well, I think part of it too is we hear that there's kids out here, and whether they are or not, it gives us an opportunity to get out in the community in our, outlying areas and even within the city limits, just trying to increase the exposure for the school experience. Because we do have kindergartners coming in where it is their first socialization, educational experience, whatever way you wanna call it. They are behind the eight ball then, just because it is their first experience with what we have, where if we can get them in the door earlier, their success rate goes up too.
Dennis? This sounds like a wonderful opportunity for our school district. It's an opportunity to connect with families where we wouldn't ordinarily connect with them. And, when I moved to Aiken 8 years ago, I was very disheartened to learn that we don't have center-based Head Start. Because center-based Head Start gives those kids a leg up. It helps them to make that transition. And so we have to figure out a way someplace to fill in those gaps. And so maybe this is an opportunity to do that. And maybe that's why Northland is willing to fund it, because it does fill in some gaps. So I certainly am in favor of it.
We've also this year, actually, one of our ECMP person, Jess Stifter, has started going to the daycares. Laura got a grant where she started going out, and I think that's been very positive from the things that I've heard, but just kind of getting in the door with some of these families.
I think the concept is great, getting kids early opportunities. The one caution I think is important to think about is, we went down this road with the school police officer with the grant, and it started in year 1 fully funded. By year 4, it was, all on us as the district to fund that, and so I think it's great to start, but if, I think this is, as a statewide type movement to get more kids in the school earlier, and it's not just Aiken, it's across the state, probably across the nation. I just, we start this, and then we're at a crossroads of, if we don't have the funds to continue it, where are we at? And so I think it's great if it can be funded grant-wise, but I just hate to say like, okay, no funds there, now we gotta cut it off and be done with it. And so, I hope there's not the thinking coming from the state or, that's schools are just gonna take it on, and it's not, hopefully it's just not a fad,
I think the positive with Northland Foundation set up, say it's ME grant or something like that. Northland's they generally have money, right? So I'd say it's more likely to be sustainable working with Northland Foundation than like an MDE where it's a 2-year deal or a 3-year deal, because I agree there is concern with that. But I think working with the relationship that Laura has with Northland Foundation, we haven't done a ton with it in Aiken, from my understanding prior. Her relationships and rapport and that she has with Northland Foundation is opening some avenues, especially for early kids. And so I think that it can't guarantee sustainable, but I think it's more likely to be sustainable than
Should be.
like a typical MDE grant where, yeah, you're a couple of years and then you're out the door.
right.
So,
I guess that's why I asked how long it was for, I
Yep.
guess I'd be in favor of it as long as the grant's available, but if the grant's not available,
Right.
I think we would have to, in our financial situation, we'd have to terminate the position. Personally, that's my opinion.
Dennis?
No,
Grants are an interesting thing, because you don't have to take the grant. And I mean that very openly and honestly. We can certainly take this grant and run a program, but you don't just keep running programs off of grants. You go back and you evaluate them to see if they have value. And, and you don't typically do that for at least 2 years. And so to my way of thinking, and maybe I'm wrong, but I would think that we should take the money while we have it and establish a program, and in a couple of years evaluate it, because that, every time we go back to ask for more funding for it, we're gonna have to be accountable to Northland. And we're gonna have to prove that there has been some value that has been brought into the district. If we, 2 or 3 years from now, discover that there's no value in it, we're under no obligation to continue it. But we may discover that it has significant value. And in doing that, we may end up being able to access other grant money to help support and collaborate. So
I would agree with that. I think the school officer was a very good program, you know? It's just the fact that, you know, we evaluated it, yeah, and just don't have the funds to do it. And so, no matter if it's a good program or not, I mean, yeah, we have to search far and wide for some funds, but, you know, it's at what cost?
And I think Northland gives us that opportunity, you know, I mean, Aiken, we're kind of in the middle of a few different agencies, you know, of funding streams and whatnot, and I think we're building that with Northland, so I think it's a new opportunity, not that money's guaranteed, but I think it's more likely to be sustainable.
Right, well, I mean, we have nothing to lose for
Right,
trying.
right.
I'm just saying that 2 years from now, or a year from now, do I keep a teacher half-time, or do I keep this program? I'd have to allow on your guys' what you share with me.
Right.
about that.
And I think that that's part of the discussion that Dan and Laura and I had when we started looking at this, was that it's posted as 1 year. You know, it's posted,
We've been very clear, it's gotta be grant funded, that based on our finances, we can't just take it on if the grant runs out, so we gotta be able to renew it. We gotta be able to show data to the Northland and the other agencies that it is working, and if it's not working, then maybe it shouldn't continue. I mean, that's where we're at, so I'm asking, we're all right, if the board's okay with posting, being that it's a grant, 1-year grant position.
I would motion. I would motion that we go ahead and pursue that.
Did you have something else, Don, or was that?
Yeah, I was just gonna say that when you make it abundantly clear that it's a grant-funded position, and if the work isn't done, the grant will dry up and so will your job. So,
We have a motion, or a second? No? Any more discussion? Not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Move on to administrative reports. Committee report, facilities and finance, from 4-5. No name on it.
Waiting on the internet. We just looked at, I don't know if any board member wants to take it, but the big thing we talked about is the long-term facilities maintenance and capital projects. Financing, we created a little bit different format on the list of jobs and list of needs for the district. You know, we talked about some expenses coming in, for example, tennis court, we had transformer struck by lightning last fall. We had a bid, but the cost of that's coming in higher, $2,000 higher than what we originally thought it would cost us. Just a couple of other minor things along with that. We are looking at painting the egg shop and updating that, looking at possibly some new furniture for the Fab Lab area at the high school. I think that's, we did talk about a capital facilities bond. Boilers at the high school, that'll be coming off after next fiscal year, and we can renew it for an earmark project or not renew it. It's not a new tax. You know, if it's, what it does, and Heather, you may need to jump in and help here a little bit when I get, talked into what I have. But it's, right now it's financing it with a capital bond, with a capital facilities bond. We, basically borrowed money from ourselves to pay for the boiler system, that we're getting that paid back, so now we have an opportunity, we can do that again. Or if we don't, you know, it's roughly $80,000 a year that we were using to pay back the capital facilities bond for that. That would just be left in our general fund. So if there's a project, for example, if we have $500,000 roof, and I hate to use roofs because it always leads to jinxes, but $500,000 roof, we don't have $500,000 to do that, but we could put out a capital facilities bond, borrow against ourselves or from ourselves down the road. You know, and that'd be whatever that comes to a year, less that we get in our general fund, but we have the money up front to fix whatever it is that would need to be fixed. Heather, how did I do?
Pretty good. It would not make any difference really in the taxes, other than right now, because we have the bonds, some of the ag properties are getting that ag credit, so they would see a little bit of a shift in their taxes going upward if we decided not to do it again. So it wouldn't really make too big of a difference in the tax base wise.
So are there major, in the facilities, is there major items that need to be done? You know, like that boiler system with 800,000-900,000 or something, I thought, wasn't it? Did it?
Yep, and Jeff Schultz with ICS and his team, I shared with them that we've got this coming up, we have some deadlines this summer that we need to meet if we wanna do something with that, so, they're gonna get working on the facilities plan that we had talked about and help us identify if there is something large, big item, or if there's not, then maybe we don't do it. Like Heather said, one thing, if we do the capital facilities bond, it does give an ag tax credit, which we don't have a lot of ag land in our district, but that would be a tax break for the ag land.
Yeah, I know it wasn't unanimous the last time we did it, so there's always something else that somebody else wants.
If it is something that we're gonna think about doing, it does require action by July or August at the latest.
Of this year.
Yeah.
Anything else? Okay. That's all facilities, safety minutes, safety committee meeting. 4-6.
Just basically worked on, and I wasn't at that meeting, Andy, so if you wanna jump in, but we're updating, we got to the end of updating the crisis management plan. The past couple of years, we had just, myself and maybe Paul and Andy have reviewed that and updated names and dates and things like that, but this year through the safety committee, pretty much gone page by page through that and have been working to get it updated and across the board, so.
And we were talking about kind of at the end of the safety plan, we had some representatives from the district go to Alice training, so we might do some updating in regards to our lockdown procedures and as far as that goes, but that was really kind of the topic of the end of our meeting at the safety committee meeting.
Okay. Policy committee. Looks like we have first readings for policy 209, code of ethics, 210, conflict of interest, school board members, first reading. Policy 211, criminal or activity action against school district, school board members, employee, or student. Policy 212, school board member development. 213 is school board committees. There's no policy, it's transportation release, is that a separate, oh, that's,
Not a policy, is it? That was just,
No, we just talked about it.
we talked about it, but
Okay.
it's not a policy.
and then policy 620, class rank, honor roll, valedictorian, salutatorian. And then, yeah, that was it, first reading. Are they in here?
Yep.
Okay.
They're on the board.
Okay.
Dennis, I have a question about 209. So, policy 209 is a pretty extensive policy about the code of ethics that the board will follow. But there's nothing in this policy about what happens if the policy is violated.
Penalties? I'm just trying to find it.
My other comment would be that I wonder if, as new board members come onto the board, if this policy shouldn't be something that should be not only distributed to new board members, but also maybe asking them to acknowledge that they've received this code of ethics.
You mean like make a handbook or something for new
Yeah,
school board?
maybe, that might
Oh,
be a
sure.
good plan, yeah.
It is commonplace in other larger employers that a policy such as the Code of Ethics is reviewed annually. So that could be a consideration too, where it's reviewed and then acknowledged in the January meeting as a reminder that we do have a Code of Ethics to regulate our behavior.
Ms. Young? Okay. Any more discussion?
So it might make sense to have the policy committee take a look at those things.
Right.
Yeah.
Do we want to make a form for the second reading then, or to bring it back as a first reading?
Well, I think Don's first question was, for the policy committee, is there a penalty?
What happens?
What happens?
What happens if you don't
Shake the
follow?
finger at you, or do you?
And who's the determiner of
Well,
that?
remember about 10 years ago, they didn't go after, but they checked on one of the board members, and it came out from the MSBA said you couldn't do nothing, he's elected from the people. That's what it was been about 8 years ago or whatever, because they tried to do something then and they were shut down, so, not to get rid of them or her or whatever, but there was, they brought it up to the state, and the state said you can't do nothing. You know, well, you can if they do it really bad, but I mean, they're elected by different people, not the board. So I don't know, you'd have to look into that too. But that's 10 years ago or whatever it was, 8.
That's something the policy committee is
Well, I think before you say we can write up Kevin Hope for doing this, Dan, or so we gotta talk to the lawyer and say, can you? What I'm saying, so before we waste our time, I think the lawyer should say, yes, you can do this, but you can't do this. Because the policy means nothing to us. Or our policy means nothing unless we can back it by what the school lawyer says or whatever. That's just my opinion.
Well, I would hope that no one's behavior would get to the point where people were thinking that they shouldn't be on board, but there does need to be a mechanism for putting people on notice if other board members feel like people aren't following the policies.
Okay. So,
I'll
you're gonna
follow
check
up
on
Terry
it?
again.
Okay.
If he can't answer, I'll call our lawyers.
You answer your question, Don?
I think so. Can we bring it back for first reading the next time around?
Yeah, because that would be totally different, I would assume, or maybe totally different, I don't know.
It may or may not be.
Okay, any other questions on all that? If not, we're gonna move on to the superintendent.
Okay, quick on enrollment, our enrollment's the same this month as it was last month, so no change there. My next item, any questions on that? My next item is graduation, and graduation will take place on the football field once again, weather permitting. If not, maybe we'll have kids ride up on their snowmobiles, I don't know.
I'm not saying.
But, yeah, so Paul and his staff are working on that. I don't know if there's any questions, or seemed to, last year we did it, and it was, we had some chairs, no chairs for the graduates and a few others, but we encouraged people to bring chairs and blankets, and I think really the only complaint I heard is some people didn't get that message, so they didn't have a chair or blanket to sit on, but we start talking about that now, or if you're inviting family to graduation, might save you a headache of telling those people you're inviting that they might wanna bring a chair, 'cause, or a blanket, but, yeah. Yeah.
Cindy,
Sorry, Cindy.
Since I have a senior, I'm on the Grab Blast committee that's been meeting regularly. Some of the feedback that we got last year was that immediately following the toss of the caps, that what they recommended is that we put 20 minutes up on the football scoreboard to then allow time for the photos and the people to gather and to do those things that traditionally were done in the old gym. And then once the buzzer goes off, then the parade would follow. So I thought that was a good idea. That was a recommendation that came forward last year. I thought I would mention that. If
I
that's
got that
something-
written in my notes.
Yeah, that we could do, that would be great. The Grad Blast Committee is working very hard, still meeting every month. The community has been very generous in their donations, and there's still an opportunity to register if your senior hasn't registered yet, and we look forward to a nice night of graduation and celebration for our seniors. They certainly deserve that, so.
Let's hope for good weather
I
again.
was gonna say, let's hope we have nice weather.
I think that Cindy and Jeremy, both having seniors, anybody else, that they should be up there handing out diplomas and
Yeah.
whatever else, I think.
Oh, the parade's still on plan, right?
Yep.
Yep, that's seems to be a big hit as well.
It's a big hit. I think it's a good thing for our kids.
You bet, it is.
Okay.
Okay.
Curriculum update, we had the notices are out, and then we're collecting names, taking names through April. Right now, we've got 33 responses at this point.
How many do you have?
33.
33? Good.
Many of them are saying they want to be on all three committees. I'm not sure if people are aware of the time commitment or not, but once we get a list done, then we'll start working with finding out which ones people really feel strongest about. I don't know that we want 30 people committees, not a lot gets done there, so we'll work on that. Our science and math teachers have been meeting with amongst their teams, looking at things they need and will need to update and do, so the process has started a little bit, but we've kind of been on hold here to get through April. We have postings on Facebook, on our school website. It went out on Messenger to both, went out high school one day and elementary the next day, and then it was last week's Aiken paper, it was in as well, so Mary Ollie's been collecting information, putting that together, so just an update on that, so. Any questions from the board?
How do you decide, maybe in here, but how do you know if these 10 people want it this way and these are 15 or 16 this way, 16 that way? What if you got all 16 on one side? How do we?
I think that's something we'll have to talk about as
Well,
well, once we get our final list.
I hope they're not side, though, they're.
No, but I mean,
Curriculum.
people think different. And I'm not saying sides, but if you get everybody to think that black is black and nobody thinks that it might be dark blue, you get all the same, so you want a wider or open on both sides. I'm not saying good or bad, but
Well, the last meeting, we only had 4, like we weren't gonna get any more, and then when we sent out the extra,
that's good.
yeah.
interest there. Okay, any other questions?
Anything else for Dan?
I have one more thing I'd like to share. This was in my, put an edit, in my, whatever editorial last week. One thing, we did some comparison with our school and 9 other area districts. And I just wanna share with the board, you know, when I compared the area districts, you know, our test scores were first in math, we're third in reading, we're fifth in science, which is an area that we've known is a challenge with standards and how things have been playing out there and put on hold and so on. But we're number 2 in students reporting that they feel safe and that they have somebody in the school district that cares, in the building that cares for them. So we're second out of 9. We're first in attendance. Our attendance rates are higher than any of the other 9 schools. And in 2020, we were second in graduation rates of the 9 schools. So, you know, a lot of stuff going on and the challenges we've had. Our district's still doing a nice job of educating kids, and we compare well with our area school districts. And hats off to our kids, our parents, our staff, our community, our board, with everything going on, that we're still doing a pretty good job, and we're not afraid to take a look at areas that maybe we can improve on, and that's what we're doing. So I just wanted to share that with the board, that too often we don't, you know, we don't hear that good things are happening, and anyway, I just want to share that, so, thank you.
Could you do like a summary of that and then share it on Facebook, or, you know, I think that is good information, so,
Anything possible.
yeah.
It was in the paper.
Yeah, it was in the paper.
Oh,
It's in his article. I
Okay.
I didn't.
I don't read them all.
No, and I don't read them all either, but like you said, I think an article said that we got room for improvement, but I got I shouldn't say a lot of people, but the people that come to me said they didn't realize how good we were doing. They just hear that we're doing bad, and it woke a few people up, but still, we got room to improve. Don't get it wrong, but I mean, we do pretty good too.
So there you go, now our kids have done well.
Well, yeah, everybody, I mean, we have a fairly decent, better than average school system in England, so, I think. It's a little partial because it's on where it's been, but. Upcoming meetings, there's a lot of them here. April 19th, Community Ed Advisory Committee meeting. 20th is Meet and Confer Committee. 21st is the Ag Committee meeting. 27th is the Personnel Committee meeting. May 3rd is Facilities and Finance. May 9th is Board Work Session. And you had that update about, wasn't it?
Yeah, Mary sent out something.
Mary sent out something, yeah, to the board,
We'll
we'll
review the last year's.
review that. May 11th, Transportation Committee. May 11th, Policy Committee. 9 AM for the transportation, 3:45 for the policy. And May 16th, regular school board meeting at Aiken High School. Anything else from the board? Hearing nothing, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Cindy?
Second.
Second. No. No discussion. All in favor, say aye. Aye.